What's up, YouTube? This is Two Raw 4 TV. Um, this is a request by one of my subscribers, right? He asked me to do a video on this subject. And this is one of those videos that's fun. Everybody has their own opinion about it. But this is my take on this. What if, instead of the Milwaukee Bucks drafting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in 1969, it had been the Phoenix Suns who had drafted him? And that was a distinct possibility. Um, Very distinct possibility. A little bit of a backstory. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest players in the history of NBA. To me, he's the greatest basketball player ever when you incorporate high school, college, and pro. He is unquestionably the greatest collegiate player of all time. You know, won 3 championships in UCLA or with UCLA. College banned the dunk because of him. And had it not been for the rules, most likely, overwhelmingly, UCLA would have won 4 titles, but they didn't allow him to play when he was a freshman. Now you take this unstoppable force, and instead of playing in Milwaukee, where he ultimately won a championship just 2 years into his career and appearing in 2 finals overall, he goes to Phoenix. Now, how would this have happened? Well, it could have happened very easily. Back then, the first pick was picked or selected by a coin. It was a coin flip. And officially, Phoenix had called heads, Milwaukee had called tails. And they both learned, I think the general managers of both franchises figured out or learned about the fate of Kareem over a phone call on draft day. Phoenix called heads. The official call was tails. So he went to Milwaukee. But what if the call was heads and he went to Phoenix? Would he have won a championship? Would he have been successful? I think the evidence strongly suggests that he would have won a championship, and I'll tell you why. Um, Phoenix had been even more abysmal than Milwaukee had the year before Kareem entered the NBA. They were both new franchises. Both came into existence in 1968. In both of their inaugural seasons, they were bad franchises, but Phoenix was even worse. I think Milwaukee went 27-55, whereas Phoenix went something like 16-66. Just horrible, horrible, you know. But then again, at the time, the Western Conference was arguably a little bit more tougher, and Phoenix was a little bit more inferior with their roster. But this was changing. In 1969, 1970, Phoenix went 39-43 in real life. They went 39-43. Um, by that time, Phoenix had Dick Van Arsdale, who was averaging 20, 21 points a game. Dick Van Arsdale was, I believe, the first pick ever for that franchise, hence his nickname, the original son. Connie Hawkins had uh, moved from the ABA, finally, after all the scandal, was allowed to play in the NBA, went to Phoenix. His first year there, I think he averaged something like 24 and 10. Now, you also have to remember that they had Gail Goodrich. So Gail Goodrich was putting up 20 points a game. Now, this Phoenix Suns team, they were great offensively. They were third in the NBA, I believe, in offense, but they were sort of middle of the pack or a little bit lower than that defensively. Now, you put in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, this supreme shot blocker and defensive presence and score, all around great player. I can't help but think if they went 39-43 as they did in real life, you put in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, uh, man, they probably win 60 games at least. They probably win at least 60 games. They become possibly the greatest offensive team in the history of the NBA. Jabbar's presence make them at least slightly above average defensively. That might be enough, probably, in their first year to at least get them to the Western Conference Finals and maybe even beat LA. Maybe even beat them and go to the finals in Kareem's first year. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. Long term, it looks better for Kareem in Phoenix than it did in Milwaukee. Because even though Milwaukee in 1971 did acquire Oscar Robertson, by that time the Big O was, what, 33? He was 33. And back then, 33 was like older, not like how it is today when you can play another 6, 7, 8 years. 33 was like getting toward the end of your career. In the first couple of years, Oscar Robertson was an all-star, but his play began to diminish, and he was retired 3 years later. That wouldn't have been a problem with Phoenix. All those guys were still young, okay? I also suspect that if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was drafted by Phoenix, I don't think that Phoenix would have traded Gail Goodrich. Because the main reason why they traded Gail Goodrich in 1971 is because they needed to upgrade at the center position because the center that they did get in real life, what was his name? Neil Walk, wasn't working out. So if I remember correctly, they traded Gail Goodrich for Mel Counts, who was with the Lakers. Well, if you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you're not going to make that trade. You're already very satisfied with your center position, right? With your center. So I think ultimately he would have won a championship with Phoenix. Um, Now the question is, how long does he stay there? When Kareem started becoming dissatisfied with Milwaukee, he didn't like the weather. I don't think he liked the city that much. But he became disillusioned with the management. He had issues with the management. Phoenix isn't exactly California, but it's out there. He may have liked the weather better. Um, Once upon a time ago, I think a lot of people had good relationships with Jerry Colangelo. I've heard different things about him. I hear, politically, he swings Republican, but then I've heard it in the past, he supported Democratic candidates as well. So I don't know. But his politics isn't what I'm focusing on. From what I've heard, I think Jerry Colangelo, when it comes to players, he generally got along with them very well. I think at the time Jerry Colangelo was the head coach, but I think eventually he moved into the executive area with Phoenix. I tend to think that Kareem would stay longer. I'm not going to say he's going to stay his entire career, but when you think about the fact that Phoenix in 1976 did go to the NBA Finals and played the Boston Celtics 6 games, right? I can't help but think that Kareem would have won a championship in Phoenix if he had stayed. The awesome look, Kareem's presence alone in real life caused the Milwaukee Bucks to go from 27 wins in 1968 to 56 wins his rookie year. That's the impact that he had on that team. I can't help but think if you put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on a team that's average to pretty good, and you put Kareem on that team, I think they become an instant champion. He's that type of player. He's the type of player that has that type of impact. So I think if you put Kareem on those Phoenix Suns teams, I think that he wins at least one championship. I don't know when, but probably maybe 1971. Um, Definitely. Maybe 1970. Maybe again in 1976. Who knows? Um, those are 3 years that pop into my mind. But yeah, that's definitely something that could definitely going to happen. I definitely think he's going to win a title. He's definitely going to bring a championship to Phoenix. The question is, how many? That's the only question. How many? But tell me what you guys think.